Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Keith, would you take roll, please?
Sure. Joe Kalani.
Here.
Sue Grissom.
Here.
Tom Murphy.
Here.
Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Jeff Newsom.
Here.
Larry Fox.
Here. Thank you very much. Approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Motion from Commissioner Kalani, second from Commissioner Grissom. Any changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, approval of our August 22, 2019 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Mitchell, second from Commissioner Voigt. Are there any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, call to the public. Since we don't have any, we will close that. And we're going to move to item 7, which is a presentation by the Livingston County Planning Department.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Kathleen Klein-Hudson. I'm Director with Livingston County Planning Department, and I've been with the department for 28 years. I can hardly believe it. But usually we're accompanied by a planning commissioner. Our planning commission chair, Brian Prakuta, wanted to be here tonight and had something occur at the last minute, so he sends his apologies. But if you were here last year, you're familiar with the fact that I think this is about the 3rd year in a row that we've been trying to visit each one of the local planning commissions each year. And just, simply to let you know what we're working on at county planning, and also so that you're familiar with our faces and we're familiar with yours. So the things I wanted to tell you about tonight are that the master plan, which was adopted in October 2018, is in the implementation phase right now. And we've put several implementation projects in our 2019 work program, department work program, such like inventorying and mapping agricultural resources. We're trying to get some of the local communities to adopt some of the housing best practices. And we've updated the community profiles, demographic profiles, and they were just completed and are now on our website. So if you go on the county planning website, you'll find a 4-page profile for Hartland Township ready for your use. And we're also implementing the master plan by doing a lot of public speaking. We've, spoke at 3 Livingston County Association of Realtors events, sharing housing best practices. There's an upcoming annual meeting of the Home Builders Association where we're also going to talk about trends and best practices of the master plan. And then we're carrying that same theme to the MEDA, the Michigan Economic Developers Association, in November. And a new project that we have that is also one of our master plan implementation projects is called the Livingston County Trail Network Plan, and it's one of the handouts. I just abbreviated it, put my PowerPoint in just a couple of pages, because this is a project that we're going to need your help on. We were able to proceed with it because we got a $30,000 grant from SEMCOG through the community planning program, something like that. Planning assistance program. And we're really close to contracting with a trails consultant who's going to help us map all of the existing trails in Livingston County in GIS, identify where the gaps are in our county-wide system, and also the conditions of the trails, a few other features, like whether it's multimodal, and then ultimately come up with a prioritized plan for trail linkages, filling some of those gaps, and what it would cost. So that's something we can all share, and work towards. But we will be asking probably Troy if he could inform us of the trails in Hartland Township and whether you have them in GIS, that sort of thing. And then the only other thing I really, well, there's a couple other things. I wanted to report that Fillmore County Park, which is in Genoa Township, it's at the corner of Kellogg and McClements, is about 90% complete. We had hoped to open that this fall, but with the really rainy spring and then all through June, we got a late start, and we're going to defer opening it to spring 2020 because we need the grass on the sports field to be very firmly established before we have visitors. And we're also finishing up our 5K trail in that park. So look for an invitation next spring to the grand opening of that park. And then, other than that, I just wanted to tell you, if you aren't familiar with this, that the 2019 State of the County Address is coming up. I don't know if you got a mailing about that, but it's October 30th at 6 p.m. at the Livingston County Public Safety Complex on Thule Road. And that's the county commissioners giving state of the county, and their subject this year is future trending. Other than that, I just wanted to tell you, county planning is going to be back in your beautiful township hall at the end of the month, on that same day, actually, October 30th, but at noon. We're doing a brown bag lunch on planning for renewable energy. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions of me.
Any questions?
I have no questions. You do know that we recently completed a study of our commercial area in Hartland Township with what was it, the Gibbs study that was recently completed. And then we also did a housing marketing study for Hartland. I don't know if you're aware of that. Some of those things are kind of like what's driving some of our planning decisions at the township board level as well as the planning commission. So
The housing market analysis was noted in the master plan as a best practice. But I don't know, have you updated it since it was first?
No, I don't know if we've updated it,
Okay.
because that's fairly recent. That was like maybe 2 years ago. Is that about right?
2 to 3, yeah.
2 to 3, okay. And then the Gibbs study, which is, what's his company's name?
Gibbs Planning.
Gibbs Planning. Okay, that's an original. Anyway, that was part of our State of the Township address that took place on Monday this past week. So it
I
was,
didn't know about that.
yeah. So
So is it on your website so I can check it out?
It is. I can send you one.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
Thank you for telling me that.
yep.
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking the time and coming over and seeing us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to sit and listen for a while.
All right, you can do that. All right, so we are on to item 8A. This is a rezoning application number 19-002, address of 948 Old US 23. This is a public hearing, so in a minute I'm going to open the public hearing. We'll then turn the floor over to our planning director, Troy Langer. If any public comes, we'll certainly take their comments. We'll close the public hearing, and then the planning commission will talk about it. And so with that, we will open our public hearing at 7:10 p.m. for the applicant Hartland Township for tax ID number 4708-33-100-016. The applicant, which is Hartland Township, has requested to rezone approximately 3.09 acres of land from planned development to LI light industrial, and the property is located at 948 Old US 23. And for the record, all public notice requirements for this public hearing have been met. So with that, Troy, I think I'll turn it over to you.
I think you did a good job.
That's the whole application. This is quicker than I thought.
What I'll do, this is a zoning map, and let me give you a little bit of reference as to where we're at. You might know where this is at, but those watching at home might get a little confused by this map. This line or set of lines that go straight up and down would be US 23 going north and south, and then at the very top up here is M59. So this is the the core intersection right here. And then this is old US 23, kind of paralleling 23. The area that we're looking at is right in here. It's this white cross-hatch parcel, a little over 3 acres. It is zoned PD. Generally, when you zone something PD, you have a planned development that is part of that. It was part of a project. It was part of some approved development. That's not the case here. This is zone PD. There is activity on here. It's a landscape business, but if you recall, that is selling to become a Kubota Bobcat dealership. And we went through that process of determining, is that use appropriate there? We examined what they do, how that operates. Ultimately, the Planning Commission determined that would be a good location for them, but decided that this really shouldn't be zone PD. We should just zone it to a light industrial, which the property to the north is zoned commercial, but then all the way to the north is light industrial. To the south is actually industrial. So the thought was to tackle both these two properties, the commercial property and the PD, to make them light industrial. We're tackling the southern one first. And what I've got for you here is, bear with me as I try to find stuff. This is a survey. The survey is a little bit tilted, but this should show what is on the property. Old 23 would be at the bottom of the monitor, and US 23 would be at the top, just for reference. And you can see this is a kind of a survey, but it also kind of shows this is basically what was submitted when we reviewed the Kubota Bobcat dealership. So you can see the existing buildings, you've got parking lot, and then you have yard storage that's related to the landscape business. Let me show you an aerial. Again, this is the property here for reference, old 23 on this side and US 23 over here. So you can see there's a lot of outdoor storage associated with the landscape operation there. Essentially what we're doing is rezoning this from PD, where there really was no approved plan development as part of that, to light industrial. And that is in keeping with the actually existing and then the new use that will occupy this property. So with that as this background summary of why we're here, I'll leave it open for any questions or comments you might have.
Okay, so just moving on to the public comments. Troy, we had no written comments from the public on this particular application, so let the record show that. Let the record show that we have no public, unless, Kathleen, you would like to comment on this. We have no public comments, so I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:15 p.m. And now we'll take a look at the staff review letter that we have here dated October 3rd, 2019. If you haven't noticed, this is our new format from the planning staff. So the new format shows you the ending of the movie at the beginning. You'll notice we'll now be referencing the opening paragraph as the conclusion. So just for reference. But I'm going to start with this on the page 15, which are the, you'll find down at the bottom of the page, the zoning ordinance rezoning criteria. Those are the criteria that we need to take a look at when making this recommendation to our board. So if we start out first at section 743A, consistency within the adopted comprehensive plan, Troy has pretty much stated that it's consistent with our adopted comprehensive plan. Are there any comments on that? Any thoughts?
Just for reference, this is the future land use map. This is that area that we're talking about in this purple color. Is they designated that color to be research and development, light industrial, and actually industrial. So if on the future land use map in the comprehensive development plan, they kind of combine a couple of zoning categories, and so it certainly matches that.
Okay. Next paragraph, 743B, compatibility with the site's physical, geological, hydrological, and other environmental features. Don't know if I have any comments on that. Okay. 743C, reasonable return on the investment with the current classification of a PD.
Well,
It's
gonna
been,
be-
it's been LI all along in
Right.
terms of how it's used, and it would continue that in the future. Everyone pretty much agree?
Right.
And the use, current use that is planned for that site is a Kubota dealer, which is.
Right, which is LI.
LA.
So we have 743D, compatibility of all potential uses allowed in the LI district with surrounded uses and zonings. My comment to this would be, we just went through that use determination for Kubota a few months ago, and we looked at all the uses in LI and everything in the neighborhood and concluded they fit. So I think we would answer that it's compatible. Any other questions on that?
No.
Okay. 743E, capacity of the infrastructure and other public services and the street system. That's about our most accessible road for this type of business that we possibly have in the community. So I think we would probably agree with that. And back up on the top of page 17, section 743F, capability of the street system to accommodate the expected traffic generated by uses allowed in the requested zoning district. The whole district's LI or I, so I would think we would be compatible in holding to that.
Traffic, there's already C there, so it's not
Right.
traffic.
Exactly. Section 743G, apparent demand for uses permitted in the requested zoning district. I think just the fact that Kubota wanted to go there, and we had a viable landscape business there for years. Comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, section 743H, ability to comply with the zoning regulations. They're complying, aren't they? And they are, and the site will fit. When you look at lot size and frontage requirements of LI, that lot does comply. 743I, appropriateness of the requested zoning district. Again, I think if we look to the future land use map, we look at the zoning map around it, is everybody comfortable with the LI?
Yep.
Section 743J, amendment of permitted or special uses versus rezoning.
We went through that, pretty much determined it wasn't, right?
You're right.
So.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
Fits LIF.
So I am on page 18 now, and I am at 743L, submittal of similar request within 1 year. That has not occurred. 743M, other factors. I don't know if there are any other factors. It seemed like this was a misfit all along. Nobody knows how it got to be what it is. And Kathleen, we don't usually blow through these this fast, but we've been working on this with the applicant for 6 months, so this was the foregone conclusion, I think. So the formality of what we've done. So we have DPW reviews. There is no comment from the engineer, no comment from the fire department. Is there any discussion, any questions for Troy on this particular application?
Not I.
So now, if you are so inclined, the motion can be found on page 11, the opening paragraph, if you wish.
I move to approve the rezoning of number 19-002 for the property addressed as 948 Old US 23, parcel ID number 4708-33-100-016, approximately 3.09 acres in area, and as described in this memorandum from PD, Planning Development, to LI, based on the following findings. The requested rezoning of the subject property to LI zoning classification is consistent with the Township Comprehensive Development Plan, which indicates the property should be developed as light industrial or planned development. Access to the subject property is provided from Old US 23, and the property has the minimum required frontage along Old US 23 for the LI zoning classification. Number 3 is the requested rezoning of the subject property to LI zoning classification is compatible with the surrounding uses and zoning and is more appropriate than the current PD zoning classification.
Support.
Ladies first. All right, we have a motion to recommend approval of rezoning application number 19-002 from Commissioner Voigt, a second from Commissioner Grissom. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up would be item 8B. This is the adjoining property that we just talked about. This is rezoning application number 19-003 located at 1010 Old US 23. Go through the same program here. I'll open the public hearing now at 7:22 for the applicant Hartland Township, tax ID number 4708-28-300-016. The applicant, Hartland Township, is requesting to rezone approximately 1.79 acres of land from general commercial to LI light industrial. The property is located at 1010 Old US 23. And for the record, all public notice requirements for this public hearing have been met. And we'll send it over to you, Troy.
Thank you. So this property is just immediately north of the property we just discussed. It is zoned general commercial. It's red. You can see there is nothing around it in that category. So it's somewhat of an anomaly in how it's zoned general commercial currently. I do have a survey of that property. This is it. It's a little smaller than the one we just rezoned. There's some, I'll call it a little unusual activity out there. It certainly doesn't fit with the general commercial zoning. These are actually little cottages that exist out here, and there's some other buildings on the site. Let me maybe show you an aerial, if you will, of that. So this is the property. You can see these are our small little residential dwelling structures out there. There's some mobile home out there. Probably another structure to identify is there's a billboard on this property as well. So that's kind of what's going on out there. I've outlined in the staff report some of the history. It's been in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals in the 90s. The billboard that was erected on there in the 80s. Not really sure why or how this became zoned commercial, but the thought was to clear this up while we were doing the other rezoning and make it more uniform, all in light industrial. I would point out that the owner of this, we've had lots of discussions with the owner of this about this rezoning. When we went ahead and did it, we sent out the notice. We do notice the owner as well. The owner did contact me and say, well, he didn't think we were going ahead just quite yet. He's asked to kind of hold off on this rezoning, so I did include that email. If you look in your packet, you'll see an email from the owner asking if we could delay action on it. At that point, I said I really couldn't. We've already done the public noticing of this, so we'll have to go ahead with the Planning Commission public hearing, but the Planning Commission certainly has the ability to suspend taking action on this, and so I did mention to him that I would, in addition to including his email, that I would raise that point here tonight with you. So with that, I'll just leave it open for any questions or comments you might have.
What's his reasoning for delaying it?
He's in the process of
selling it.
the property. He just doesn't want to have this rezoning impede in his transaction.
I think it's going to well, why don't we do this? Why don't we, there is no comment. The record shows we only have a written notification on this rezoning, but it does not relate to for or against from the property owner, Jared Beauchamp. So why don't we close the public hearing at 7:26? And before we get started in the staff memo, why don't we address that? In our meetings with Mr. Beauchamp, he owned the property to the south. He sold that to Kubota. Kubota's in the process of acquiring the northern piece also. They're in the middle of a sale. And I just wonder what that could do to financing or some things if all of a sudden the zoning changed on the property. And you'll see in his memo, he said, could we wait till the first of the year? Because I believe that that's when they think that transaction will be complete.
Well,
Yeah.
we're only a recommending body, so we're not doing anything, we're just saying, and I imagine that once the property is sold, that they will go ahead with the rezoning. It just makes sense. So I don't see any reason for us to delay our action tonight. I don't see any reason for it.
No, I think we go through this, Troy said, with the public hearing. The question is whether we send it to the board with a recommending of approval and the board tables it,
Board can
or
vote
we
on it.
table it here.
Right.
One or the other, just honoring the request of the property owner, who's been very cooperative through all of this, ultimately wanting it. I think they're just in the middle of a deal right now.
I think sending it to the board right now probably is not necessarily a good thing. I think tabling at this juncture and then removing it from the table in January and then proceeding then.
That would be fine.
So, I mean, I think that could support that. And then
Okay.
advise the board we table the second one at the request of the property owner.
Right.
And I'll do a report to that. I think that way, we'll have another opportunity to take a look at this at that time. Not that it would change, but we don't know.
Okay. I would support that. So why don't we go through with reviewing it right now?
Okay?
And that way we'll have that portion of it complete. Is everybody comfortable with that? Run it through the staff letter today? Or do you want to table it right now because the public
table it.
hearing's over?
Yeah, the public hearing's over. I would table it if you're not, if that's the goal right now, there's no point in going through everything. Because you're
Okay.
going to have to go through it again when you remove it from the table, because no one's going to know what you
Talked about
talked about.
2 months ago.
Right.
That would be fine. Is everybody
So
comfortable with that? That's good advice.
Based on the request of the property owner, I'll move to table this matter.
You got a second on that?
I support that.
Okay, so we have a motion to table rezoning application number 19-003 from Commissioner Kalani, second from Commissioner Boyd. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And then when I report to the board, I'll indicate that we tabled it at the request, so we'll revisit it after the first of the year, or perhaps when the landowner would like us to do that.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay?
Okay.
Is it okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, so then let's move on to item 8C. This is zoning amendment application number 19-002. This is amending the single-family residential standards. Troy, I think I'll turn this over to you for a little history, and what are you looking for today?
All right. So on this one, this is a zoning amendment. We had, what we need to do is actually initiate this. The Planning Commission has to be the body to initiate this text amendment to the ordinance. We looked at, we had a subcommittee of the Planning Commission that was tasked to look at what can we do for our residents that live on the various lakes. They run into problems with not being able to do additions or renovations to their house. The zoning district standards that apply are typical subdivision standards, and we hear all these concerns that the lots are much smaller on the lake, and so the lot coverage was a big hurdle. We did a survey of several communities, and you have a copy of that survey. We reached out to communities and said, how are you guys have lakes, how do you deal with this? And that's included in there. What we found is we're actually a little different than just about everybody. We are including way more things in our lot coverage requirement, or our lot coverage percentage is much lower than everyone else. So that's how those other communities are doing it. They don't include a lot of things that we do, or their percentages are much higher. So what we've done is, as we started to dive into this, one zoning district affects another zoning district, affects another zoning district, and the next thing you know, we're no longer talking lake lots. We've got many different residential districts that we're looking at with this. So we are bumping up a lot of the lot coverage standards. We are also eliminating a lot coverage exemption, which was creating confusion and had been applied historically in many different ways. And then we are also creating a new standard for waterfront lots, where that lake lot also owns a lot across the street where they may want to put a detached garage on that vacant lot across the street. Currently, that's not allowed. It's although there's plenty of them out there, none of them would conform. And this would establish some minimum standards by which someone could do that. It requires them to essentially put a notice on the deed, the title work, so if they're ever sold off separately, the new owner would be on notice of why these two lots are owned together. And selling them separately could create problems with the use of that detached garage. And we've bumped up some of the lot coverage standards in the non-conforming lots. That's, in a nutshell, what was accomplished. I'm not going to get into all the details. We discussed this in August, and in August, the Planning Commission decided there's a lot here. This has kind of opened up into quite a bit. They wanted to take, the Planning Commission wanted to take a little more time, and now we are back.
Okay. Questions, thoughts? Everybody remember the meeting? Okay. Anybody?
Are we going to go into detail a little bit on some of this? I just had a question
Were you,
about one.
you're welcome to. We had
Just
done
ask a
it.
question. Yeah, the
Yeah,
one thing that I
absolutely.
guess I didn't focus in on, I just want to
Absolutely.
get back to it, was, Troy, when you mentioned when they own the property across the street to put on their garage, I looked at our different districts and sizes for garages, and I looked to see kind of what category these lake lots fell in. Suburban residential, it seemed like most of them.
Yep.
And in that requirement, it talks about an accessory structure, which I think is the garage. 1 story, 15 feet, and now we're allowing 2 stories, 800 feet.
So it's basically, it's 1 story, there's a loft, it wouldn't be uncommon, even in a single-story detached garage, there might be an attic area
Sure.
up there. The thought was it wouldn't be a full recognized story, it would just be a loft area
Okay.
if they wanted to have that. Because we limit the size of they're not limited in the SR district on how big an accessory structure can be.
Okay.
That limitation is from lot coverage and setbacks
Got it.
and stuff like that. This one is limited, it can't exceed a certain,
800 square feet, 4 cars.
right.
And it says a second story or loft area.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to clarify that, because another, I just thought it was 1 story, so I just,
No, it's a good
thinking
question.
views, lake, lots, all of it, I just want to make sure they can do what they want, but we don't want to.
We had opened this up to a meeting where we invited the lake associations to come on in. We notified the presidents of each of the lake associations in the township. We had a meeting right here where residents could come in and ask questions. One of the comments they asked was that they would like to be able to not have a separate dwelling unit over there, but it wouldn't be unusual for them to have guests and maybe a sleeping area where kids could kind of sleep, or maybe a living room or something to that effect. So the goal was to try to build something in there to accommodate that. You know, if that's something the planning commission has concerns with, that can.
Aren't we trying to dissuade them from doing exactly that, though, like elsewhere in the township? Building an accessory structure and then living in it?
Well, you can't make a living unit, you can't put
Yeah.
kitchens and everything in it.
Well, sleeping areas and things like that. And I agree with you, Sue, the wording is a bit confusing. Second story or loft, that's a bit confusing. Maybe it should be defined what that second story is a bit more.
And then even what's permitted in that second story. So would it just be an area that, would there be plumbing added?
There could, it just can't be a separate dwelling unit. So plumbing doesn't automatically constitute a separate dwelling unit. If you had a bedroom or a living room, that would not constitute a separate dwelling unit either. So you generally, in order to have a separate dwelling unit, you generally are going to need cooking, bedroom, bathroom type arrangements, kitchen. So
So what would you like to do on cleaning up that second story or loft?
Well, when we use the term second story and we're talking about a residence, we're not talking about a loft. We're talking about a second story. So I think that probably would apply as well to an accessory structure. So, I mean, in my opinion, you can get what you're after and we can satisfy the homeowners of these lots by just striking that second story
okay.
and say a loft area.
What page is that
permitted.
on? Could you help me
Yeah.
out here?
That's on page number 5. It's paragraph B, the item B.
76.
We'll leave loft, but strike second story.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the second part of the question, and dwelling unit and living unit, has that been answered then? By-
So wait a minute, I think, wait a minute, these second story, and there is a difference between a loft. And a loft is like, in most like, if you go up north, you have a cabin, there's sleeping quarters, it's just like a
Yeah, they're
area.
permitting a loft now.
Kind of open.
Yeah. Right,
They're saying, let's let a loft be. Let's allow a loft.
right.
Yes, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with
Okay,
that.
good, okay.
I thought you were deleting it.
No.
Okay.
Clarifying
But
it,
if
that
they-
you can have it, but you can't have a full second story, is what they're saying. They're saying, they believe a second story is different than a loft.
So this is in the non-conforming lakefront areas, correct? So the idea really is to conform to some of this is already in place, and doing it. Most of them have these garages, and in their garages, they have a second story, they use it as a second sleeping quarters for guests that come over. You go up and down any one of those. So by not adding the second story, we're back to a non-conforming situation.
Well, those ones would continue to be non-conforming on that status. Just there's some vacant lots where some people have expressed an interest to do it. They just wouldn't be able to do that. They could build a loft.
Well, okay, so this is kind of the same situation. I had a case up on Hubbard Lake, same kind of similar thing. Across the road, they wanted to have a garage and then a second story above it. And all the neighbors had it. This guy wanted to have it. And basically the township was telling them no. So,
Yep.
And it's like, well, wait a minute, all your neighbors all have second stories, and the one guy that never built before goes and gets a permit, and he wants to do it. I just,
I can't recall how many of them actually have second stories. I know there are some
No.
detached garages. I don't know the true number that we're
Right.
talking about on this second story.
I
though.
can live with it. I just think we're creating a problem, and we're probably gonna have to address it again for these kind of non-conforming lakefront properties.
Yeah, I just shared with you the
Yeah.
reason behind it is.
What's the
some of
difference between having 400 square feet on the first floor and 400 square feet on the second floor?
The roof structure, I think, is really where it comes down to, right?
Well, wouldn't the roof structure be the same? If I'm building a
Well,
loft,
that's what I'm saying, like
I'm
the
still
wording.
going to have the
Well,
same height.
and that's permitted. That's why I'm saying the wording, if you think about a second story, thinking about, okay, the roof is going to be raised another floor, right? And that's kind of what we're dissuading.
Yeah, and the,
Having 2 full floors and then a roof on top of that for an accessory structure. It could be bigger than the house.
and the comment was, does it give this an unfair advantage to a regular lot that can have an accessory structure but couldn't even have a
Second
loft or second story?
That's the part I didn't get, because it's zoned suburban residential. Everybody else, if they're not on a lake, they can only have 1 story for their accessory garage. So I just was trying to understand why, we're trying to make it good for them on the lake, but why do they get to have 2 stories for the garage? Does that make sense? Let's give them the garage, but why would it be allowed to be 2? That's just the question. I just was seeing that discrepancy, not understanding it. I don't even know why the regular are only allowed. I know in the CA, I believe you can have 2 stories
Yeah.
in your barn. So I don't know why, when we step down, we've already started to say now it's only 1 story. I don't know where that all came from.
View sheds, I mean, lots are small anyway around lakes, and if you have buildings that are 30 feet tall, surrounding, lining the road, it's, not
Yeah.
nice.
Right. So it's just, I wanted to bring it to our attention to kind of understand why we were doing
I
it.
have no problem with it, quite honestly, having that second story. If you're going to go as far as a loft, what's another 3 feet?
Well, then, why would the rest of the zoning district be
We're not-
limited? I know,
right.
I'm just looking down the road, I'm
I
just trying to
know, the other zone,
understand.
that's not before us, but
I know.
we're trying to correct problems in a very unusual situation, which is these lakefront properties, and they're all over the place over there.
Sure.
And I know there's second story accessory buildings with livable quarters on top of them across the road.
Sure.
I mean, I suppose you could limit to a certain number of the height if you wanted to do it that way. You can have it, but you got to limit to a certain height.
So maybe that's the direction we should think, because I agree with you, Jeff, that at a certain point, if there's a second floor, that would constitute maybe an 8-foot wall. New construction, 2 8-foot walls, now you're at 16 plus the rest, plus the peak. Now how tall are you on a little lot? But I can see how people had garages on the other side of the road, and there's rafters, and you naturally maybe just put a floor in there, and now there's a place to sleep.
Yeah, that's fine.
So like a story and a half.
It's like a story and a half, yeah. Build into the roof structure. Yeah.
I'm not feeling one strong way, one or the other.
Yeah.
A lot of the lake houses are 2-story because their footprints are small, so they're already
2-story.
2 8-foot
Right.
walls and a
Yeah.
roof. So the garages aren't any taller than the house. There are some small homes over there that have not been rebuilt, that are maybe 50 years old, that someday will be torn down, I'm guessing. Someone will purchase them and put something a little larger on there. But a lot of the homes around the lakes, these lots around these lakes are already 2-story because they're such a tiny lot with a tiny footprint. So I don't know that the garage is any taller than the house, but I'm going to go with the flow. I think it's soup to nuts over there in regards to the accessory structures that are over there as to what they look like. I think you got single and 2-story both. I think you got everything. And it's still an amazement how they got there, but
They're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then they'll build it, and they'll come back in and ask for an after-the-fact
Forgiveness.
permit. Forgiveness. 'Cause that's
So-
what they do.
where are you at? Do you want to limit it to the loft, or do you want to go the full height? Don't make me be the tiebreaker.
What does a story and a half mean then? A story and a half mean single 8-foot
only half
and
the story.
then knee wall, 3-foot wall from that?
Basically, yes. In other words, you have the potential of usable space down the beam, down the ridge line. And then the roof line slopes off from there, so, versus a full 8-foot wall.
Yeah, to me, that seems like I'm just going to use the term of a home, a ranch. That's like getting the attic space in a ranch.
Yes.
A story and a half seems like the walls would have to be taller, but I don't know. You know, that you have to have 12-foot walls instead of 8-foot walls.
Well, just maybe if it helps clarify, just so you know how this works, in order to qualify this, there's got to be a couple of criteria first. One, the house is on the lake side. The detached garage is across the street from it. So in that scenario, this is never blocking the view of the lake for anyone. It can't be the other way around, that this is set up, it can't go to where the detached garage is on the lake side. This is set up to where the house has to be on the lake property and the detached garage is across the street. I don't know if that helps clarify or soften or address any of those concerns, so. Maybe not, maybe I just confused it even
No.
more.
You did. Yeah. I can go either way, too. I was, again, just pointing out that I saw discrepancy in the zoning district and trying to understand. So,
Yeah, I'm flexible as well. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a big deal breaker at all, so.
no.
It's almost its own district, just like the village, the settlement
Yeah.
areas. And then, but then the other thing is what, do we want to control some of the look? Or do we want to let them control the look? I don't know. Should we force them into 1-story, 1.5-story? Or let them go 2-story if they want?
Well, I think,
We can't compare it to another district, I don't think.
No.
I think for a lot of that area, it's already out of our control, so.
Yes, sounds like.
I don't think we're controlling any of the look, so now, from where I started through this discussion, I'm back to suggesting that we leave it as a 2-story structure, because I think we're opening up more questions of what defines a 1.5-story when we talk a loft versus just leaving it alone. I kind of agree with what Troy is saying. I think this is going to boil down to a onesie-twosie situation. I don't think this is going to be an everyday ordeal here, so I'm more inclined to allowing it as a 2-story structure.
No, it's pretty much right there. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And back in the day, somehow, some way, some neighbors got those garages in there, although the ordinance never permitted it. As the township developed and got a hold of things, they started to apply the ordinance.
If I remember correctly, one of the issues, too, is the way in which the assessor separates these two,
Right.
when it's really should just be one lot with a road through it because it's on a lake. Because they're on a lake, they're riparians. So if they touch the edge of the water, they have rights to use the lake that are somewhat greater than what the public's right is if there's no public access. And those lots across the road, my guess is they were probably always part of that. So how do you regulate, how are we regulating that? We're going to make those two lots, still have only two lots, right?
Yeah.
And they have to be sold together?
So
I don't know how you can do that, but.
we're getting a little out of my area of expertise, so bear with me, but the assessor cannot create one tax parcel number if the lots are separated by a road. I don't know that that's consistent with how everywhere in Michigan is, but I guess it doesn't matter because we're dealing with it here. And in here, you can't have one tax parcel number. So they're assigned separate tax parcel numbers. So our attempt to put people on notice that these lots are under common ownership and for all practical purposes are being combined as though they are one lot is to have that property owner record a deed restriction or a notice so that in the event they ever wanted to sell them independently, the future owner would take notice that, wait a minute, there's a provision that this garage was only permitted by being under common ownership with the house, and if I take ownership of the house, that could cause issues. Maybe I should investigate this. Hopefully, that would cause them to at least have those questions. I know sometimes it never does, but that's our goal.
Is this only in platted subdivisions or?
No, we have not, we've opened it up to any.
By the way, is this a platted sub?
Several of them are.
So there's, okay, that's fine. You can't vacate the road without going to court anyway.
Yeah, we're trying to make this as simple as possible. It's-
You have to revise the plat under the Land Division Act. Those are fun cases.
Now we got to go to court.
Thanks, Joe.
Well, you can't, he's right, you can't combine the two lots in a plat without going to court to do it. It can't be done by the assessor. And if there's a road especially, then you still have to vacate the road. Well, you're not going to vacate the road, so it's got to remain two lots.
I think the wording is perfect.
After all.
It was worth
Well,
the discussion, though.
Well, and I do think there will be many happy property owners in this district with what's going to happen here. There probably will be a few that will not be happy because that vacant lot next door to them now can have a accessory structure on it. But I've been down the Pinckney Hamburg area around some of the lakes there, and they all have accessory structures
Yeah.
across the street. And that's where those people, because they have a smaller parcel, they typically have a two-car garage, and they have more stuff to store when you live on a lake. They are using those things to keep the area clean. They don't have the boats sitting in the driveway with the shrink wrap on it. It's an aesthetic thing down there. I just think it looks better because there's a place to put all the stuff away, whereas they don't have that luxury on that tiny lot. So I actually think we're a little behind the times on this one. So personal opinion, I'm in favor of it. I thank Troy for all the work he did on it. If there isn't a major objection to it here, I would recommend that we advance this to the next step.
I support, well, I'll make that
Well,
motion.
yeah, okay, I'll support that.
And then we can have some discussion here. Okay, so I guess we've got a motion from Commissioner Kalani, second from Commissioner Newsom to move and initiate a zoning ordinance text amendment as outlined in the staff memorandum and attached dated October 3, 2019. Now, any further discussion? Do you have anything else?
Nope.
Anything else, Troy?
Nope.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All righty. We're packing them in today. 3-minute limit on the call to the public. Planners report, item 10.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I do have a few items on my list. a reminder that they are accepting applications for Planning Commission. So visit our website or contact me. I'd be happy to help in any way. So I just wanted to make that one known. Secondly, the Hartland Ice Arena. That was a site plan that was reviewed here by the Planning Commission. It was approved. It's an addition to that. There's been a slight change on the building elevation, and I wanted to bring that to your attention. So this is the building elevation, the west elevation of that addition. If you recall, this is kind of protruding out the front. This is where the locker rooms and some of the training rooms would be housed to help Cleary University establish their men's and women's college hockey out of this facility. This is the west elevation that was approved, has a doorway here and some windows. What's happened is the developer, I think I got to go up. No, it must be, this is the east elevation. Oh, here it is. Bear with me. This is what he's done. He has installed what would be a kind of a garage door right here on, this would be not only on the west elevation, it would be on the east elevation as well. So it kind of allows access into the building. It is not, I call it a garage door because it opens up that way, but it is not for the purpose of getting a vehicle in or getting materials in. Apparently through this new athletic training, it's very common that they will open the doors and have activities going on inside, and they will want to run out of the building, and they don't want to be hindered by pushing a door open. So they have found this to be extremely attractive, and they've already installed it. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Isn't it a little tough to run on ice skates?
Well, ice is at a premium, so they do a lot of off-ice training. And this would be associated with off-ice training. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Any comments or concerns or
So
questions?
Could you go back to the original
Yep.
approved?
Yes, there.
So we've added a door.
Added a door.
Shifted everything down.
Well, no, this door stays exactly where it is. The windows here have moved slightly down, and now we have a garage door.
So they modified the landscape plan accordingly if there was landscaping?
Only on this elevation, whatever the width of a sidewalk is to get in there. I think we eliminated one plant material item.
Okay, thanks for that update.
Next, Ben Franklin Plumbing. Just wanted to give you a little update on this. This project has been ongoing for quite some time. This project was on hold for quite a while. We weren't sure if this project was not going to move forward. I don't want to get into too much of that. I will let you know that as part of this project, we have learned that there's a retaining wall in the retention pond. It was part of the design of the retention pond. The estimate that came in was well over $100,000 to do the retaining wall. The applicant has said they essentially can't do it, and if they're required to do it, I don't think they can go forward with the project. So we are looking at some changes on the retention pond. We might be installing a vault in the site. They can do that for about $15,000. That'll involve a slight revision to the site plan for the retention pond, probably involve some changes on the landscaping plan, and we've been working with Commissioner Grissom on changing some of the landscaping on the site. I don't have a plan to show you because this is kind of happening as we speak, but I wanted to bring this to your attention. We're trying to work as best we can with them to keep the project moving forward. So I'd be happy to talk with any. If you have specific questions, feel free to let me know.
It's more of a general question. Was it HRC, our engineer, that required the retention
It was designed that way by the applicants.
applicant? Okay, so I just want to make sure, from the township's perspective,
No, it wasn't us.
it wasn't us, okay?
But we'll get blamed.
But we'll get blamed.
Yeah.
Right. We're working with them to solve the
Well, that was
problem
my next part.
that they created.
Right. The next part I was going to say, good job in kind of working with the business owner and trying to figure out a more cost-effective solution.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just double check that, because we always want to look at that. I mean, if there are certain things that are being required and there's a better way of doing it, then we should look at that if it's coming from us. So I just wanted to state that.
Next on the list, McDonald's has been adamant. They are really kind of leading the charge out there in the fast food industry that has menu boards to effectively the maker of all their regular menu boards nationwide is done. They are switching all their menu boards over to these digital LED style menu boards. And we have been working with them to look at that. Been working with the site plan review committee on what could we do. I have had a few discussions with our attorney about our concerns with moving forward in this direction. I wanted to at least bring this out, make you guys aware of it. At some point down the road, we'll probably have some discussions so I can get some feedback from the entire planning commission as to how do you feel about this topic. And I don't really have enough to share with you at this point, but I did want to get you start to think about that and how you might react to, and when we do look at it, although McDonald's is really pushing on it, remember, their competitors will hop on the bandwagon, and so we're going to be looking at all of those businesses. So I just more or less wanted to bring that to your attention, that that may be something we'll see here in the near future. And if you have concerns or comments, we can just discuss that. But I at least want to give you some time to think about it, because that will be a new topic, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions on that. So. The next one is a rezoning south of M59. I might be jumping the gun. I'm actually calling it a rezoning. If you recall, under planner report, it was maybe a month or two ago, staff had been approached by a resident that, where did I put my zoning map here? I think I closed it out, so.
The one along 20?
This area, this residential area in here is zoned office. And there are single-family homes in there. And essentially, all of those homes become non-conforming uses and non-conforming structures. And anyone in there that wants to add a deck or an addition to their house can't do that. That's not permitted. You can't do an addition to a non-conforming use or a structure devoted to a non-conforming use. So all of those residents are essentially stuck in an office category. I'd kind of brought this to the Planning Commission, said any knowledge or history. This is one of those that just goes way back for so long that no one had any recollection of it. I did want to let you know I've examined this, and what I've got is a general site plan of the area that I got permission to move forward with the rezoning of that area. And so this is the general area. These are single-family residential lots. They're colored differently because of this is a tax parcel map, so they have different tax ID numbers. But that's the general area that would be rezoned. Those are all existing single-family homes, zoned office. The property to the south is in a single-family residential. My thoughts are we would just bring that boundary up to include all of these in a single-family category. The caveat to that is all of these existing offices that are on M59, there is a setback if they abut residential. Now, currently, they don't have that concern because they don't abut residential. Even though the properties are used as residential, they're not zoned residential. So this rezoning would have some potential negative impacts on those properties up there. I wanted to get your thoughts, comments before we go ahead with that, and if you've got any, maybe you don't have any. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. This is a DPW email. So next, Noble Appliance. Noble Appliance, as you may or may not know, is currently occupying the remaining portion of the former Walmart building where Rural King is. They've been doing some interior work. The fire suppression sprinkler system in that building to divide that from a Rural King to a Noble Appliance has been very complicated and was much more expensive than they thought. Looks like we finally got that done. So just to let you know and give you a heads up that Noble Appliances, we're in the process of issuing a land use permit for them, and they'll probably start moving forward, and you'll probably see them as a new tenant next to Rural King right here in Hartland Township. The last one was actually brought to my attention, transitional housing. We've had some discussion already about adult care facilities and nursing home facilities in our ordinance and how we define and treat these child care, adult care, nursing home facilities, and our terms and definitions probably don't match what's currently happening out there. Transitional housing is somewhat along those lines, and I think the article that was given to me was in Howell. They're adopting a transitional housing ordinance, which would be, I think they talked about sober homes where people that were battling diseases that may be there for a temporary period and then eventually would transition out of there. So I just wanted to bring that up as a point that we might want to remember when we address those in the future. That's all I got.
Okay. Any questions for Troy on that? All right. Committee reports, 11. Anybody have anything to offer?
I have one.
You do?
I just wanted to make a comment about the LED menu boards. Before you form an opinion, wait for some of the examples that McDonald's is talking about. And maybe the next time you start doing some drive-throughs, compare the screens they're using to what the current thing we have down at McDonald's now. And it sounds a little scary when you talk about LED sign and LED screens, but I just don't form a true opinion until you look at all the pictures and facts. That's all I had to say.
Okay. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn, please. Newsom and Mitchell. Sorry. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.